Welcome to Annunciation Radio's Faith with Reasons, the program that examines what the church teaches and why. Faith with Reasons.
Well, good afternoon and welcome to Faith with Reasons. Shane Stanfield and Ron Finn at your service with a wonderful guest today. Can't wait to talk with Matt Archbold. And, we've got a lot going on right now, obviously, and just trying to make sense of it all is sometimes a challenge because you hear so much noise from all different sides. So hopefully we can, cooler heads will prevail here.
Oh, yeah, I hope so.
Now, coming up on Saturday, I want to point this out, the annual Mass for Life and Eucharistic Procession at St. Catherine of Siena is taking place. It's 9 a.m. Mass for Life, celebrated by Bishop Thomas, and then following Mass, Bishop Thomas will lead the Eucharistic procession from St. Catherine down the street to the last remaining abortion center, and the procession to and from will be, figure, about a mile and a half, and it will feature songs led by Nick De La Torre. So it's going to be a wonderful, prayerful experience and a great witness. And, of course, as we kind of get close to the wrap-up of 40 Days for Life, we always look forward to this event. There's always a lot of people there. And they've got, as you're going down North Haven, you're passing a lot of side streets. Those are all blocked off. There's a police car at each one.
Nice.
So that you're unimpeded. You don't have to worry about getting run down.
Mm-hmm.
And then a prayerful prayer rally following in the parking lot, the Foundation for Life parking lot across the street from the abortion center. So hopefully you can make that. Again, that's from 9 to 11 on Saturday. And looking forward to that wonderful Eucharistic procession. It's always great to be a part of that.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully we will see you there. What's happening with Shane?
Not much. Not much at all. I was lucky it didn't get rained on the way over here. It looked like it was gonna do something, and it never did.
Cloudy out there, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well. Can't golf today. It might as well rain.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
All right. It's been a while since we've had Matthew Archbold on. Of course, Matt is an author, a blogger, a columnist, and a Catholic father of five. Award-winning journalist who is heard every Thursday on Annunciation Radio's morning offering program, and oddly that has not tarnished his reputation up to this point, but there's still time. Author of a best-selling pro-life novel, American Antigone, and also of Faith Under Fire, Dramatic Stories of Christian Courage. And Matt is the creator of the web resource Creative Minority Report, which spotlights current topics and news stories without losing his sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I think is so wonderful. So, Matt, welcome to the program. Glad to have you back on Faith with Reasons.
I always enjoy it greatly. And Shane, just a word of advice on the radio. When someone asks you, what are you up to? Not much is not the correct answer for radio.
Ron's told me that before. I'm supposed to say more than not much. He might have been looking for some conversation or some filler there. I don't know, but
humility doesn't work on the radio. They don't. People don't get it.
That's right. Now, so maybe next time I ask you that, say something like, after 7 long years of study, I finally got my superhero cape.
Oh,
in a graduation ceremony that has been a long time coming.
Oh, yeah, I could have. If that had been the case. We could have been talking about me remodeling, but I think I've done enough that I don't want to. So,
well, and when you're remodeling and you're doing drywall and you're building rooms and doing all of the stuff, I mean, major remodeling is what you've been up to.
Major, yeah.
The last thing you want to do is, when you're not doing it, not to talk about it. You don't want to talk about it anymore. You're done with it.
I'm done with it. So I'm in my cool down period right now. So
now, Matt, you've remodeled your entire domicile, haven't you?
With my wife, that happens every few years, for goodness sake. My wife doesn't listen to Ohio radio, so I'm free to say whatever I want here, guys. So I have a loose cabinet. That's why I speak the truth.
And I have to know, does she rope you into that, or
There is not one wall in this house that has not been pulled down and put back up. And until the last time when she hired someone to do it, because she was a little tired of having uneven walls with terrible seams.
Now, see, Donna, my wife Donna and I, we compromise on major home improvement projects. She'll say something like, can we put this door over here instead of here? And I'll say, well, let's compromise. How about if I rearrange the throw rugs? And she goes along with it. So,
if you move the rug over, it might appear that the door is shifted.
Exactly.
Yes, I get
it's
that.
optics.
Right.
It's all optics.
Yeah, huh? Yeah.
It's a lot easier on the back. A lot easier on the back.
That's for sure. Well, Matt, let me ask you what's been happening in your life. Your son is getting older, and I'm sure that your duties as a busy dad are shifting somewhat. So bring us up to date.
Well, I can bring you up to date till about 30 seconds ago. So I was talking to him earlier. He sent me an 11-page paper and said, "Dad, it's due in 3 hours. Can you edit this for me?"
Oh, wow.
So I literally was going through it up until about 20 minutes before I got on the phone with you guys. And this is hilarious. So, I mean, Ron, I've told you about my son many times, and his paper is about how comic books are no longer for kids, and that's a shame. And he wrote 11. Honest to goodness, he wrote 11 pages with facts and figures and how this has affected sales, and he was so passionate about it, it actually ended up being a good paper, even though he doesn't have the first clue about grammar at all.
That's one smart kid, though.
Which is understandable because he reads comic books. He thinks pow and wham are actual words.
So he's a chip off the old block, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, I watching that 1966 Batman. Pow, wham.
Wow. So you just got done. Did you finish the editing, or do you have to get back to it?
No, I finished it. But when I first got on with you, he actually buzzed in trying to call. So I quickly sent him a message saying, "Remember, I'm on the radio?" He was like, "Oh, yeah."
There's Dad on the radio again.
Yeah, that's the funniest part is that he's going to call me and critique my edit. That have this 11-page paper done in 1 hour and make it snappy, Dad.
Well, that's because he knows you can do it.
So it's a compliment, is what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. He looks up to you.
Here's the thing, Ron. I am a writer, not an editor. There's a reason they put editors between me and the public. Okay. You should see what the shape of American Antigone was when I first wrote it, and then after the editors got through it, it sounded almost adult.
Yes, they're the unsung heroes, aren't they? Speaking
Actually,
of books,
Ron, I just finished another book, and it's sort of I don't know. Did you ever read the Inklings? About the Inklings, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien,
Yeah.
Charles Williams. So Tolkien and Lewis, for many years, they had essentially a bet that they said, okay, you're going to work on a sci-fi book, and so that C.S. Lewis wrote Out of the Silent Planet. It's called the Space Trilogy, which I love. And Tolkien was supposed to write a time travel book. He never wrote it, but he did okay because he wrote Hobbit and Lord of the Rings.
yeah.
But and Charles Williams did much of the same thing. So my latest book is kind of going off in that vein with more of a fun-loving fiction book, but still very much the same. It's very, very Catholic, very, very Christian, and but it's fun. I hope it's fun anyway. And maybe I'll send it to you today or tomorrow. And if you could take a read, I would love for you to be one of the first readers and tell me what your thoughts are.
I'm honored. I would love to do that. I was just going to ask you how the new book was coming, and you've got it finished, huh? That's amazing.
Yeah, I did, and hopefully it'll have a sequel, and then we'll see how that goes.
Wow,
very
sequel.
cool.
So you got more to write on this.
Yeah, it was fun. So it's essentially not to go into it too much, but since we're very far from publishing, but It's about essentially a stay-at-home dad whose wife has passed away, and he has 5 kids, and he gets pulled into some kind of mystery that he's going to write about as he does it, and blog about it, and it gets deeper and deeper, and while he's trying to take care of these children, and they get involved. So it's a fun, loving book, but it also has some themes that I think will resonate with Catholic and Christian readers.
Wow,
nice.
I love that premise.
Yeah,
I'm excited to read that. That'll be great.
So how long have you been carrying around this idea?
Literally right after American Antigone. It just, like a couple of weeks later, it started bubbling up. And then you kind of push it off thinking, I'm not going to do that. But then it just keeps gnawing at you and gnawing at you. Mm-hmm. And finally you're just like, okay, I got to do this. Do you find
the longer that you have an idea like that in your head, the more the story develops? Or
yes, absolutely. Yeah, That's exactly what happens. And the weird thing is, if I talk about it at an early stage, mm-hmm. it goes away.
Oh.
So I've learned never to talk about a work as I'm doing it, because it seems to dissipate all my energy towards the writing. I know that sounds like a head case kind of thing.
No, that sounds. That sounds perfectly reasonable. I can understand that, mm-hmm. And I get that. That makes perfect sense.
Okay, so you're crazy too. That's all that means.
Well, yeah. There's safety in numbers,
So last week, my daughter went to the pro-life rally in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and I went up there too. I went alone. She went with her school, actually, and I took my son too. I wasn't alone. So he had the day off from school, so we drove up. We took part. There were about 10,000 people there.
Wow.
It was great. It really was. As we're walking away, there's the 8 people, and all of them old, and yelling at us. I mean, literally just yelling at us. So I walked over to this one guy, and I said, well, what are you yelling at us for? We're here. We're not doing anything to you. No, you're not doing anything. You're doing, you're trying to take away women's rights. And I said, let's just figure this out. Are you for abortion in the late months, like 9 months? He's like, oh, of course not. No one's for that. I was like, well, that's not true. No one's for that. Then I was like, well, if you don't like it in the 9th month, how about 8.5 months? How about 8 months? And then I start kind of drawing them back. The reason I do that is I always try to make them defend this magic moment where somehow this blob of tissue somewhere at like 6 months instantly becomes a baby.
Yeah.
And it's just a silly argument. And they realize the silliness of their argument. And I was just stunned because when he realized what I was doing, when I had him down to like 5.5 months, when he realized he just started yelling nonsense at me. You guys don't care about babies. You just want to imprison women. And he just yelled. So I just walked away. And my son was like, yeah, nice job, Dad. Good job.
But you're right. They never really have to answer questions like that. That's a great way to kind of confront the issue and maybe even bring some people around a little bit.
Yeah. And then the next day, the gospel was Jesus talking to the Pharisees about the Caesar, the coin, what is Caesar?
Oh, yeah.
Gift. And, it just struck me that when they asked Jesus those questions, they had no interest in the answer. They just wanted to trap him.
Yeah.
They had no interest in truth. And I just couldn't help but think about it. It's the same thing. People aren't interested in truth anymore. They're just interested in winning. That's all they want to do is win their side, and it's just, it always amazes me when reading the Bible and hearing the gospel, how true everything was and is, is now and ever shall be, a world without end. It's so true. It speaks exactly to human nature in such a profound way that everything in there is as true today as it was back then.
Well, it's even more difficult today to reason with people. And you don't have to talk them down, or use big words or anything, but you just try to use some very basic, simple, common sense, like you were doing. I mean, and you get to a point and you realize that they don't have the capacity to reason. I don't know if it's because they're acting so irrationally, but they will not. Maybe it's what you just said. They just have to argue their point, and they refuse to think about the points that are being made.
Yeah, it seems the only thing you're not allowed to be anymore is intellectually honest.
Yeah.
And if you try to be that is akin to treason. George Orwell had this great quote, and I'm paraphrasing, but you're free to be a drunk, a coward, a rumor mill spreader, a fornicator, but you're not free to think for yourself.
Yeah.
And that is today. I mean, that is absolutely today. You're free to choose your own gender. You're free to be an animal if you want to. But if you say something true, you will be shut down. You will be canceled. You will be banned and demonetized or whatever they have to do to you, but they will come for you.
And I think they realize that. I mean, I think that they know that the truth has to be hidden. It has to be twisted. It has to be, distorted in such a way, and they know what's true. You would have to think that they know what's true, but you can't have truth and have what they propose at the same time, because it's they contradict one another.
I mean, if freedom is going to mean anything, and I mean anything, it has to guarantee the right to tell people what they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
Once you lose that, you've lost liberty. It's gone, and we are on the precipice of that right now. And I fear that not enough people truly realize that.
And it's also kind of very disheartening when, one side gets a free pass on things and the other side is held to fire on every little detail. And I see this especially with this ballot initiative coming up in Ohio on November 7th on issue 1. You're seeing some really wonderful truth being spoken about what's in this and how it could be applied. But on the other side, the folks who are telling us to vote yes on this ridiculous, immoral issue, their side it's stacked up with a load of lies, and they're
blatant.
They're
lies.
spending millions to spread these lies, and it's you're fighting with one hand tied behind your back, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and you don't have the media and the journalists backing you up. In fact, they're panning you as misogynist, patriarchal types, and you just get no feedback. So every million they spend on this, it's double because the journalists are just spreading that information even further. Mm-hmm. And for us, it's really sometimes like howling into the wind. Let's be honest: if you had to make a bet in today's culture on fear or logic winning, logic's going to lose every time, and you know it.
That's a scary bet, yeah.
So as much as I was trying to talk to that guy in Harrisburg that I met, and I was trying to logically speak to him, I thought about it after. Logic is never going to win this fight. I mean, we have to speak logic. There's no doubt about it. We have to. The only antidote to fear is love. And we have to convince people that God loves them and God loves everyone. No matter what circumstances you're born into, God loves everyone. That is what we're called to do. That is the antidote to everything we're facing nowadays. If more people were convinced that God loved them, this country would be very, very different.
Well, that's kind of how the enemy works, right? Let's pit, A against B, group against group, person against person. Hatred answers hatred, and boy, he's the devil's just sitting there smiling and rubbing his little hands together. That's exactly what he's trying to do. Faith with Reasons is the program that you happen to be listening to, and the familiar voice you hear is Matt Archbold, who an award-winning journalist and just a heck of a nice guy. And so we're glad to have you on, Matt. Now, you spent a fair amount of time in secular media, in journalism, and then you left that to really kind of do God's work. And I don't know if we've ever really talked about that much, but I'd love to hear that story.
Yeah, I was very, very focused on myself. I was very Matt-centric, let's just say, when I was younger.
Well, who isn't?
Yeah. And I was, after I got out of college, I started working at newspapers. I was actually working at TV Guide. Do you remember TV Guide?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's gone now. But I was working at TV Guide, and then at night I went to a local paper. And after I got off, I drove about 20 miles, and I found an open door in the newspaper office. I shouldn't have even been there. I walked in, and I was asking, who's the night editor? Who's in? They kept sending me around. And finally I met a nice guy sitting there, grizzled old editor. And he said, what do you want? And I said, I'm Matt Archbold. I work at TV Guide. And listen, I will work for you for 1 month at night, every night, for free. If at the end of that month you think I'm doing a good job, then you can consider hiring me. And at the end of the month, he hired me. And that started my life in journalism, and I went all the way up to the Philadelphia Inquirer, and I was working there for a while, which at the time I think was the 10th largest paper in the country.
Wow.
And I was feeling very, very good about myself. And then I had a child, and then it came another child. and it was funny because everything changed around that time. And it just, obviously it's all connected. And it wasn't that I wasn't serious about my faith, but I think my faith was more of a Sunday faith, and it's not that it didn't guide me, but I wasn't looking to it on random Wednesdays. It was, more big picture kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And finally I really started focusing on what God really wanted. And I ended up leaving journalism. And when I left the newspaper, I thought I was done. I really did. I thought, no one leaves a big newspaper and then has a gap on their resume, to help raise kids. And my wife's an accountant. So I was doing that, and I was writing freelance. And oddly enough, I was actually probably at the time making more money freelancing than I was
doing the journalism.
I mean, and it was funny because I just mistakenly got into writing for Catholic publications. And then, it was just, the first job was just a job. And then after that, I really thought to myself, like, it's crazy how compartmentalized my life has been. And, you have kids, you have a wife, and you grow up, and you just start seeing how God is not a part-time thing. This has to be all in or nothing. And I'm definitely that kind of person. I'm an all in or nothing kind of guy.
I kind of gathered that from the story, how the story started even. Mm-hmm. Talk about a driven man and a purpose. And then
I was so driven that, my wife had, what are those lessons you go to about having babies? Lamaze.
Lamaze, yeah.
Okay. Lamaze, right? So we were doing those lessons. I missed every single one for my firstborn because I stayed at work. And wow. I remember texting my wife being like, I'm just caught up. I'm going to try to make it. One or two times I made it with like 20 minutes left and I walked in. And oddly enough, the Lamaze class does actually teach you something, because when my baby first came out, my firstborn came out and had she was covered in gunk.
Yeah.
Now, me, not having done a stitch of research, thought something was very, very wrong.
Who slimed my baby?
Right. And then when I saw the placenta come out, I thought those were my wife's organs. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is terrible.
She birthed more than she intended.
Put it back in, for goodness sake. She needs that. So I missed everything. And, my wife rolls her eyes to this day about that. I thought my baby came out defective, and, I was going to have to take her, hose her down, and fix her up. So, yeah, but, I've gotten better since then. I never did those Lamaze classes, though, because after you do one, you don't have to do any more, but
you kind of got that, yeah.
Yeah, but as I've gone on, I will say I've become more passionate about communicating. And, when I left journalism, I really thought to myself, I'll be able to write whatever I want to write. I want to write what I want to write about, and that's, I had no idea what to write about. I remember, being home and, doing my work, and then at night I'd be like, okay, I'm going to write something. I had nothing. I a lot of stops and starts, and I had nothing until I started writing about my wife and my kids and my faith. I had nothing to write about. So it was such an odd quirk. It was such, God pushing me. And you idiot, you're not writing about anything important, Let me give you something to write about. So it was through leaving the newspaper and really investigating my faith and pulling it around me and throwing myself into my marriage and my children, then I had something to write about. Wow. It's the ultimate irony, and it boggles the mind how God works. You think you're giving something up, and at the time I really did. I was like, I'm giving something up, but I'm doing it for the right reason. I'm giving it up, for my family, because we have to raise our kids. I didn't want our kids, in daycare 24/7, and I knew I wouldn't get out in time because I know myself. So I thought I can make the same, and so I quit. And then God led me to my real vocation.
And I got to tell you, people would look forward to that monthly publication. You'd write about your kids, and they were so humorous. People would look forward to that. How you get your monthly subscription. You look forward to reading from certain contributors or authors, and that's the effect that yours had, because people can relate to that.
Yeah.
Matt Archbold, our guest on Faith with Reasons. We'll be right back.
This November, lives are on the line. Abortion extremists are trying to make painful, late-term abortions legal in Ohio. Now more than ever, we need to pray and fast to end abortion. I invite everyone to join me for this fall campaign of 40 Days for Life from September 27th through November 5th. Commit to 1 hour of prayer each week outside Toledo's last remaining abortion center by going to 40daysforlife.com/Toledo. That's 40daysforlife.com/Toledo.
Hello friends, Peter Range here, CEO of Ohio Right to Life, with a critical update for you on voting no on Issue 1 this November. Planned Parenthood and the ACLU are working to pass Issue 1 on November 7th, which would legalize painful abortion up to the moment of birth here in the state of Ohio. It would also eliminate a parent's right to know whether or not their underage child is considering an abortion or even sex change operation. And it would remove basic health and safety standards for women. Time is of the essence, and we need your help. First, please pray with us every day to defeat Issue 1. Second, please visit creativeequal.org/issue1 to learn how you can phone bank from the comfort of your own home or knock on doors to spread the truth about the dangers of Issue 1. Third, please consider supporting us so we can finish strong. Visit ohiolife.org to help today. Thank you so much for your support, and vote no on Issue 1.
On Monday, November 6th, the Christ Child Society of Toledo is hosting its annual Celebrity Wait Night to raise money for its many outreach programs to children in need. Bishop Daniel E. Thomas, many clergy and religious, and both Ron and Dave from Annunciation Radio will be there. Your generous tip that night goes to purchase coats, hats, books, baby items, and more to help Toledo area families. Sign up today at ChristChildSocietyOfToledo.org.
Now, back to Faith with Reasons here on Annunciation Radio.
Hey, welcome back here. Shane Stanfield with Ron Finn, and today we are blessed to have Matthew Archibald, who you hear weekly in the morning program. He's a contributor. He's also an author, blogger, columnist, and a Catholic father of five, award-winning journalist who is heard as I just mentioned, every Thursday on Annunciation Radio's morning offering program. He's an author of best-selling pro-life novel, American Antigone and Faith Under Fire, dramatic stories of Christian courage. He's also a creator of a web page, Creative Minority Report, spotlighting current topics and news stories. And of course, that's without losing his sense of humor. And if you've been listening, we've gotten a taste of that humor quite a bit, and hopefully quite a bit more. But we were discussing your transition from journalism into writing, and that at the time was a Catholic publication, and that was I believe discontinued fairly recently. And you've just completed a new book. It's not close to publishing yet, but you obviously continue to write.
Yeah, I'm absolutely passionate about speaking and communicating about the faith and just reminding people, and that's what it is. It's reminding them, because I think everyone knows in their heart that God is love. God loves them, and it's just, and using the spoken word and communicating through writing and telling stories. I think it's what I am absolutely called to do, and if you look back, God spoke the universe into existence.
Mm-hmm.
God said, "Let there be light." God created an orderly universe out of nothing, merely by uttering a word. He didn't have to do it that way with a word. He chose to speak a word, and that should tell us something about the importance of our words, because He gifted us with the power to speak words. And that is, that's a large part of we are made in God's image. We have that ability. J.R.R. Tolkien, who I brought up before, he called storytelling an act of subcreation in which we, mirror God's actions by creating a story with our words. And in that way, he thought we exalt God. In a way, telling stories is a form of worship, which I absolutely believe when those stories are told properly and with love. And all, as we know, you guys know this better than anyone. On the radio, our words can be a great good to people. Now, we also know words can be misused. They can be used to misdirect. They can be used to obfuscate. They can be a lie. A lie is essentially an attempt to create an alternative to truth, and essentially an alternate reality in the mind of a listener, not God's reality. It's a world distinct and separate from the one God created. That's what a lie really is. If you look back on man, we had such a great start. You couldn't have asked for a better start than we had. The first words recorded in the Bible by man are incredibly powerful and exalting words. This one at last is bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. This one shall be called woman. That is a pretty darn good start for man using words. Mm-hmm. And then things went south.
Yeah.
Think about it. You see language right after that. A great start for us. Yay team. And then language gets misused pretty quickly. The serpent lies to Eve. He lies and leads Eve and Adam to the apple. And then they play the blame game. Eve blames the serpent. Oh, the snake tricked me. Adam, this guy, he doesn't just blame Eve, if you read it. He blames God, too.
Mm-hmm.
He says, the woman you put here with me, she gave me the fruit from the tree.
He blamed them both, yeah.
So I eat it. Now this guy...
It's your fault.
Right. Can you believe it? I mean, it's just unbelievable. And it just shows you that these words are so powerful. And, so we descended pretty quickly from, bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh, and all that wonderful poetry and reality to she did it. You did it.
Yeah.
And, our speech can be used for great good, which is exactly what you guys do, and you're committed to it. And I truly do. I love your shows because it's people speaking in a real way. And I've told you guys this many times. When I do, and I've done a number of radio shows, I've told so many of the hosts that I think the conversation I have with the host before the show or after the show is better than the conversation we have on the air, because they don't allow certain things to be said. They don't allow you just to speak. They want everything a little more scripted. They want to know exactly what you're going to say. And that's why I love this show, because it's people speaking real about their faith and their kids and their wife and the difficulties and the fun of it. And I just love that. And it to me, this is evangelization in such a strongly positive way. And one of the reasons I do what I do is when Jesus tried to teach us something, when he really wanted to teach us something about the nature of the world and of ourselves and heaven, how did he do it? He told a story. The parables, they're stories. Right?
Yeah.
And he made us. He knows how our minds are wired. We are made to learn through stories. God created us to learn through stories and to tell each other stories. And those stories, when they are done properly, they point to a greater reality. And that is what we have to get back to. Each word is stitched together with other words, and it creates something new every single time, something new that didn't exist. And if the story points to something true and ancient and enduring, it points to God. If you speak the truth, it points to God. Remember, John Keats said, truth is beauty, beauty is truth.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that is, I truly believe that. And we have to understand that when we speak truth, it will be beautiful. And when you create something beautiful, it is truth, because nothing else can be beautiful other than the truth. But we live in an age that doesn't even believe in truth.
Yeah, I mean, truth doesn't have an agenda. And unfortunately, so much that we're exposed to is, you got to wonder where is this coming from? Because there's obviously some sort of an end game or some sort of an ideology, some sort of an agenda behind it. And we've seen this time and time again, especially in print journalism, but in other, obviously in broadcast as well, where it's you get to the end by the steps that they take you to get to that end. It's like it's all preordained, and it's really disingenuous. And
it has nothing to do with truth. You're right. And as a kid, I remember thinking about that question by Pontius Pilate, what is truth? And as a kid, I remember thinking it seems so silly to me for a big, powerful, important man to question the very nature of truth. But in reality, those are exactly the ones who would do such a thing.
Yeah.
That question, oddly enough, I keep going back to this, how relevant the Bible is today. That is the question of our age. What is truth? What is human life? What is gender? Who decides in a world without truth? And whoever is the answer to that question, that is our worldview. If you let journalists, if you let politicians decide what is true, that is a worldview. If you let God tell you what is true, that is the worldview. That is the correct view of the world. That is the only view of the world. That is reality. And you have to make a choice what world you're going to live in. Is it the world of truth, or is it the world of a narrative that's been created so that others can advance an agenda?
Well, this narrative, and of course, the focus obviously here is journalism, because that's your background. But this narrative is communicating to the masses, and you have this corporate influence that is, they either own the news organizations outright, or they're tied to them by basically giving talking points. So journalism today seems to me as more as a propaganda machine controlled by somebody who knows, who's behind all of it. But the narrative is furthest from the truth, and we're seeing that with the conflict in the Middle East now. The stories that they run with, that we know days afterwards, we've known for days that they're simply not true, but they continue to repeat these distortions or these outright lies that have been refuted time and time and again, and it's very much purposeful. I mean, nobody in their right mind would continue to run with a story, knowing that it's been refuted, and yet they continue to do it as if they're trying to do it repeatedly because they believe the more that they do it, it becomes true.
Right. They have to make you believe it. That is how they hold you in thrall. And the only way to avoid tyranny is by speaking the truth. Mm-hmm. Do not live by a lie. They are going to. What greater power is there than making people lie? It goes back to Orwell, who I quoted earlier. 2 + 2 = 5. Mm-hmm. Once you admit that, once you say those words out loud, you're in their care. Now they get to dictate what reality is to you. And like I said earlier, they're creating an alternate world in which they are the gods. They decide what is true and what is not. And their punishment is swift and severe. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, we've seen evidence of that. And, granted, there are some good journalists out there. I don't know how suppressed they are because obviously they're not as prevalent out there. We're more apt to run into some egregious interpretation that's an obvious agenda-pushing item, the way the whole thing is written and structured, than we are to find the really good journalists out there. So I don't know if they're suppressed or just unlucky enough not to find a big enough platform because it doesn't fit with whoever they're writing or broadcasting for.
Well, it's actually a great point. The journalist Glenn Greenwald, have you guys heard of him?
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah, he's a very, very famous journalist, and he is very, very liberal. He's a very liberal guy. In recent years, he's come to question a number of things. In recent years, the blinders have come off a lot of people.
I've seen that, yeah.
For some people, it was, COVID opened their eyes. For other people, it was, canceling people, banning people because they thought there were only two genders. And a lot of people are starting to wake up. So Glenn Greenwald he was an award-winning journalist, and he wrote for the New York Times. He wrote for every illustrious publication. And he testified about how social media is being controlled by the government now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're being told what to do, what to ban, what to cancel. And there was one congresswoman who called Glenn Reno a so-called journalist.
Wow.
And that is unbelievable. This is the government deciding now who gets to be a journalist. And, once someone is a so-called journalist, now that's a step under. Now, is it a big deal if he's not allowed in press conferences? Because he's not a real journalist. He's a so-called journalist. And that's how the game is done.
Yeah.
He no longer is allowed to be monetized on YouTube or his Substack can't collect funds or he's not allowed to interview anyone. That's how they do it. It's all about power.
Now, I believe that what you speak here of these platforms being controlled by the government. There is a case, I think it just went to the Supreme Court regarding the government's meddling in this. Isn't it Missouri v. Biden? Am I thinking about the right case?
Yes, it is. That's exactly right. And they are going to hear it. Is that correct?
Yeah. They are. Yeah. They are going to hear it, and that's a blessing. I mean, it really is. But they're not going to get around to a decision until next May or June. I mean, that's how the Supreme Court works. But nevertheless, it will be heard. But that's what I mentioned previously. It seems to go from the major corporations to the media. They all seem to be tied. I mean, there's a lot of people that have theories that the CIA has involvement in that, and particularly with COVID and how information is disseminated. And it's not recent; it's been something that's been going on for quite some time. I've actually heard a number of very, very well-known, highly respected and intelligent people speak about it. So, it's not the folks that are wearing tinfoil hats. It's legitimate, and it's well known, at least as far as the government folks that are concerned that are no longer in the government. They speak of it because it's been practiced time and time again. So maybe there's some of that going on. I don't know, but it doesn't seem that you can trust journalism today. You can't turn on CBS and trust what you hear. You can't turn on CNN and trust what you can't turn on Fox. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on and trust what you hear, because there's an enormous amount of bias going on. So my question for you, Matt, is where have the good journalists gone? I mean, they're continuing to work. But I know there's probably a lot of them, since they can't speak their mind, or they can't speak freely. They have to be working from someplace else. And where is that? Where do you typically find the good journalists today? Are they working on social media platforms, or are they doing, like you mentioned, Substack?
Yeah, Substack. And then I found a good number of them on YouTube and linked over there. But you really do have to find it. You can't find them anymore in normal places because they just don't support the truth anymore. They just support a narrative. In fact, and they say it. They don't. This is not hidden anymore. They say they are no longer doing both sidism. Okay, and that's an old thing. Like any issue that came up, you had to speak to the one side, and then you had to get to the other side. Okay, but then you had the question, okay, what about if the other side are Nazis? Okay, that's always the go-to, the Nazis. Do you have to get their side? Okay, well, of course not for Nazis. Well, what's the next step then? Half the country's Nazis. So we don't have to get their side. That's what happened. And they say that, Chris Cuomo on CNN said all punches are not created equal. When one of these Antifa guys punches a white businessman, that's okay, because all punches are not created equal. Look what happened with journalism when one person said they did a ground radar, and they said outside of this old Christian school, this Catholic school, there was a missionary, and they found a number of possibly dead children. Yes, dead children. And then they counted up. They said, "Oh my gosh, there could be up to 70. Oh my God, this is terrible." Well, this was everywhere. This was everywhere on the news.
And
okay?
it was presented as fact.
Presented as fact.
And churches burned.
And remember, Justin Trudeau showed up at the site with a teddy bear, and he knelt at the site and laid a teddy bear down, which I nearly vomited in my mouth when I saw that. And it was the front page of every newspaper, and churches burned. Dozens and dozens of Christian and Catholic churches burned
Yep.
to the ground because of it. And then meekly, about a year later, they say, "Whoops." Okay, they rechecked. Yeah, there's no graves there.
Yeah,
our bad.
Yeah,
but do you think that was a mistake?
No.
Do you think they care about that? No, that was part of the agenda. That was fine. That's a mistake worth having, according to them. And how many churches and pro-life centers have been vandalized in America, and nothing has been done.
So this is not even journalism. I mean, no. If you got, what is it? What is it up there? Is it CBC? Is that the major?
Yeah, CBC, right?
Yeah. Okay, so they run with a story. That's not journalism. I mean, like you said, they're running with that, that propaganda. Really, they're just passing it from the right hand to the left.
Well, we're not talking about just mistakes. That's the thing. We're not talking about mistakes. We're talking about distortions of reality for a cause that the journalist believes to be greater than truth. And so it's all about what side am I on? Am I on the right side of it? And once you start picking sides, you're no longer about truth. You're a propagandist. Right. The moment you supplant a goal higher than truth, you're in very, very dangerous territory.
Well, getting back to the, what's going on in the Middle East, there used to be something called investigative reporting. I guess it'd be in journalism. Somebody's going to try to dig down and find the truth. That was obviously not being done with these stories. Nobody was looking to confirm what they were, what they were being told. It's like you said that, what took place in Canada with the story, it was just picked up and run from organization to organization. They just kept putting it out there, and no one bothered to check if the facts were, well, you made a great point. True. They didn't care.
Yes, because it was the right side was getting hit by it.
Yeah.
So right now, Israel is seen as an oppressor.
Yeah.
So they were perfectly willing to report whatever Hamas told them because they are about the side. They're not about the truth. And the left has clearly chosen a side in this conflict. And, there's such an irony to this. They've chosen to side with Hamas, the most illiberal, patriarchal, violently anti-LGBT group in the world.
Yeah.
And why? Because Israel is viewed as an oppressor, much the same that Catholics in this country are viewed as an oppressor. So it's all about the Marxist view of class and different groups. So whatever has to be said, whatever has to be believed to shrug off the oppressor, that's okay because you're on the right side. It's not necessarily true, but it's the right thing to do.
I've seen so many pictures and slogans. It continues to be regurgitated over and over and over again. These, the LGBTQ plus to whatever they're holding their signs and it'll be a sign for, gays for Palestine or transgender whatever for Palestine, and they have no idea that they wouldn't have the freedom to hold that same sign in Gaza, right? Because they'd be, like you said, they'd be killed.
Yeah, it is amazing the compartmentalization something like that takes in one's head is just amazing. But it's all about who they're against.
Yeah,
and they're against Israel right now, and for the life of me, I don't even understand why. And they are very, very much against us, and they've made that very, very clear how they feel about us.
Mm-hmm.
And now we have the FBI picking up on this and investigating traditional Catholics. And, you look at any show, any murder mystery show or cold case that they do, you know who the bad guy is the second they're wearing a cross around their neck.
Right.
Like, I think I got the bad guy.
Yeah, no.
We're just demonized in every single aspect of art and journalism and media, and they have chosen their enemy. They have seen their oppressor, and they intend to throw us off. Now, what they are left with, if they should succeed, will literally be hell on earth, because it will be hell on earth, because once you disavow God, hell is all you got left.
Amen.
And you see evidence of this in so many areas of education, for example. From elementary schools, we're going to cancel Good Friday now because, I don't know why, but they're going to pull, Good Friday off, or at least change its name or something like that. You've got universities that are canceling talks about Christianity because somebody complains. There's a lot of truth in this oppression that's taking place each and every day, and it's a battle that we shouldn't have to fight.
No, but it's a battle that we've always had to, and we have to just keep going on, and we have to convince people. Like I said, it always comes back to this. We have to convince people that God loves them. And, we can argue this all day with them, but in the end, we have to live our lives in such a way. And so many people do it so well. They're praying in front of abortion clinics, and just, that seems to me, the front line of this culture war right there. And the love that they extend out to these women in trouble is so inspiring.
Amen. Well, Matt, a wonderful chat today. Appreciate that. Author, blogger, columnist, and now editor. So congratulations on your elevation. We appreciate that. I hope the paper gets a high grade from your son.
I will definitely let you know.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, and tomorrow morning we're going to have you on Morning Offering, so look forward to that too.
Yeah, I think I'm all out of things to say, though.